Hey, good evening. How is everyone doing? I am doing just fine and dandy. I, of course, am your happy to be here, Harry Hirsute host, Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. It's good to be here. I hope you're all doing fine this evening. I'm doing great. We are currently waiting on, of course, the regular co-host for Wednesdays, Kyle Schuant, who is currently indisposed on a minor medical matter. So we'll see him when he gets here. And until then, you'll just have to put up with little old me. How are you? How the heck are you? Hey, Doomsword, it's good to see you out there in audience land. Let me just say something real quick, because I don't think I explained this very well. But I posted over on Facebook earlier this evening because until or unless Facebook tells me what the hell they mean by saying that I had a copyright infraction on a video for 1 second, 1 second of audio, I can't really do anything with that. Just gonna have to leave it. But here's the thing. When I link to my show here on YouTube, rather than post it over on Facebook Live proper, Facebook actively suppresses YouTube links. They do. You can share a YouTube video, you can share a YouTube video link, and fewer people will see it. And you can try this out. Create an account, friend it yourself, stick a YouTube link in it, or just if you have Facebook, just use your Facebook account. Stick a YouTube link in it, and go on a different computer and just look at the general feed. Even if you're set to get notifications from that person, it will be actively squashed, pushed down by Facebook. So when I link back to the show to my friends on Facebook, I am now in the habit of making a separate post saying, hey, just below this link, if you click on my timeline, you'll find a link to the show, because I know they'll suppress it. Isn't that nice? Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that grand? So if you're here from Facebook land and you're like, hey, I usually watch this on Facebook, what's going on? Well, those are the two big things. And I just wanted to let you guys know, I'm not ignoring you. I'm not forgetting to go live on Facebook. If Facebook would give me some reasoning, even a form letter from them, where they came in and they said, well, here's what we think we heard, but we fixed it now. And I bitch about YouTube, and there's plenty worth complaining about YouTube. But in all cases of things that they've given me little strikes on, that there was any question, and I'll clarify that in a second, they've come back and said, yeah, okay, that one's on us. You're fine. I have three videos on my YouTube channel. One is a full concert by the industrial metal band Revolting Male Chickens. You know what I'm talking about. Which I don't think is... I think I set it to private. But for the longest time, like, Warner Brothers didn't put out a DVD of it. It was only available on VHS. And they stopped selling the VHS a long time ago. So you couldn't get it. Nobody could see the concert. Someone uploaded pieces of the concert slowly over time on YouTube many years ago. I downloaded them, concatenated them, and put it on my YouTube channel. Not to make money, not to pirate the video, just because it's a fun concert and it's worth seeing. Obviously, that one can't stay. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum musically, I put the Ray Conniff Singers version of It Came Upon a Midnight Clear on YouTube because it didn't exist anywhere. And they're like, that belongs to us. So I took that one down. And there's a video I haven't taken down, but I've let stay up with no monetization, where I make fun of Wizards of the Coast and their stupid Ifriti statue that you can pay $400 or something for. And it's the Ifrit from the cover of the Dungeon Master's Guide, but instead of holding the female thief or illusionist or magic user or whatever in his hand, he's now holding the knight that's supposed to be standing in front of him. And in the intro to the video, I use like a snippet of Anvil of Crom. And then the outro of the video is the music from I'm going blank here. The Larry David Show, I think. BGC says, hey, where did my comment go? I have not touched the mouse. What did you say, BGC? You can try repeating it. I literally don't see it. Yeah, no, that's don't even discuss. I would prefer we not even approach that. But anyway, so yeah, so they struck that. Well, I had to use 2 copyrighted pieces of music. And then, there was one other. I used a piece of 3D software. I'm a big fan of terrain animation flyovers. They were popular in the 90s. You get a program like Bryce, or in my case, Vista Pro, not Windows Vista, but it's 3D animation software with an emphasis on moving the camera, flying the camera over terrain. Now you can get better looking graphics out of a video game than I took like days to render. It's not a great program, but I still liked it. So I made a video flyover of Crater Lake with trees, clouds, the whole schmear. And I set it to Salisbury Hill by Peter Gabriel. And they struck that one. So I just took that one down. All of those completely legitimate. I would never go to YouTube and say, but free usage. No, you're absolutely right. But other stuff like the joke about when I said, hey guys, I've got an only, with a rotating and the fans sitting up on the wall behind me there. I have occasionally said a dirty word or two, a naughty word or two in my videos, and they've said, hey, we don't think you should do that. And then I've clicked submit for review, and then they've just gone back to monetize. So I guess, but that's really about all I've ever had come up. That kangaroo humper, I think, is at the doctor, Luther. Okay, so BGC says, I mentioned that Facebook has been throttling, denying YouTube for years and years. Then I said that for me, it's yet another reason among the thousands of other reasons why I ditched Facebook circa 2015-ish. Okay, Yeah, and I can definitely agree with your reasoning and agree with your logic. But that's just what's going on with Facebook. So if you're a friend of mine over on Facebook and you're like, has Bill abandoned us? No, I'm trying not to, but Facebook is making it more and more difficult. And again, as I've said before, I have actual legitimate Facebook friends, like people that I know in real life. And that's just a convenient way to contact them. And I have actual legitimate Facebook friends that I know in real life who are thousands of miles away. So I can't really reach out to them and contact them. Vinny says, if it wasn't for the D&D marketplace, I'd have ditched Facebook a long time ago. Yeah, and for me, if it wasn't for my IRL friends, I would have also. But then so coming up this Saturday, bring this back a little bit game related. Coming up this Saturday, I am doing the free RPG day at Gods and Monsters. I will be there running AD&D, which is giving me an anxiety attack. The A is standing for anxiety. For the first time ever since doing this, I feel really paranoid about running a good game. Like, I don't know how good it's going to be. And that is really doing me in. But the store that I'm going to, Gods and Monsters, they maintain a strong presence on social media and on Facebook. So I want to be able to interact with people that are going to be at the game. So there's a lot of little things. Speaking of D&D and the internet, I am and putting aside all the negativity, I'm almost but most of the last episode through Stranger Things season 4 thus far, because July 1st or July 2nd, I can't remember, but there's 2 more episodes. They split the season like 80-20. So I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. I would rate it thusly. Season 1 is still the best. Followed by season 3. Thus far, season 4 has been really strong. Season 2 is dead last. So I'm still very much enjoying Stranger Things. I started to watch. I was like, okay, I'm going to watch an episode today, and then I look up and it's like 7:15, and I'm starting episode 7. Like, okay, can I get? All right, the episode is an hour and 25 minutes long. I could just I could almost make no. Yeah, it's going to be big. Here's the thing. And mild spoilers here, not any major plot point levels of spoilers, but mild spoilers. With everything they've introduced so far, with all of the twists and turns in the plot, and I'm going to complain about one and give major spoilers. I don't know how we come back to a season 5, even though it will be the final season. I don't know how we come back to that. It's tough. It's really kind of weirded me out about how they might pull that off. So we'll have to see. Let's see. BGC says, when Facebook dies from neglect, I'll buy a bottle of Laprohague at I know nothing about Scotch. I just, brown drink hurts me, and I will never get used to the taste. Like, I can drink it mixed with Coke. Like, I wouldn't drink a nice, like if somebody said, yeah, this is, a buddy of mine actually stayed at the hotel that Stephen King stayed at when he wrote The Shining. Okay. Was the only guy in the bar, and said he just wanted to have the most expensive Scotch they had. It's just like I don't know. I want to say it was like $110 or something. I know nothing about it. But he's talking about, I was like, was it $110 glass of Scotch? He said, yeah, it's great, and it tasted. It's like, such would have been wasted on me forever. Hello, Mark. Good to see you. So I guess if Facebook died of neglect, if Facebook went down the route that MySpace did, I mean, MySpace is around, but not so much you'd notice. I would celebrate with a really good beer or cider. I'm just not a brown drink guy. Oh, yeah, that really expensive Scotch, like, if it was a case of making it palatable or drinking it as it was intended, I just wouldn't drink it, because I wouldn't put Coca-Cola in that. Yeah, season 2 of Stranger Things is just not good. I don't particularly care for it. I mean, honestly, it's kind of forgettable. The most memorable part is when Dustin pulls out a true first Monster Manual with a lizard logo and Monster Manual in the middle of the front cover and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons on the top, and trademark applied for. That was a nice touch. But I was okay. So this drove me up the wall. Now, two things. First of all, this is very spoilerish. What I'm about to say about Stranger Things season 4 is very spoilerish. Fairly warned, be ye, says I. So at one point, Mike and Will and Will's older brother, who for some reason I'm flaking out on his name, and their friend, who is a pizza delivery guy, leave Los Angeles, drive part of the way across country to Utah because they need to use a computer. They need a certified computer genius. And of course, Dustin's girlfriend lives in Salt Lake City with her 5 brothers and sisters. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 brothers and sisters. And use her computer. What computer does she have? She has an Amiga 1000. Now, from back in the day, from the 90s, I was an Amiga nerd. The Amiga 1000 came out in 1985, hot on the heels of the Macintosh. It was better than the Mac in almost every respect, but it was owned by Commodore, and despite Commodore's ability to hit a home run with a Commodore 64, they didn't know what to do with the Amiga as far as marketing and promoting. In 1985, people, particularly in Europe, were still buying gobs and gobs of Commodore 64s. The last time I called Commodore tech support in 1992, the 800 line says, if you have a tech support question about your Commodore 64, please press, in 1992. So they go and They use a dial-up modem because they got a number. They call the number, but it's just a bunch of screeches. And they're like, "Hey, remember War Games?" And so they go to her house, use an acoustic coupler modem, and those only go at 150 baud, by the way. And she was using like a World Wide Web kind of interface, and all the stuff that was scrolling up the screen was just HTML, which didn't exist in 1985 nor in 1986. And she talks about the internet, and she's basically dropping a lot of terminology from the early web days. But guys, the early web days were 1994, 1995. Like literally, it was a decade out of whack. It was as jarring to me as if it was a 50s nostalgia show and they had somebody drive up in like a 1971 Pontiac Firebird. It's an old car. People, it's an old car. Yeah, but it's not, it was really jarring. But they get the information from her and then they go on about their business, and I'm not going to spoil it. It would be ARPANET, Damien. You are correct. Somebody message BGC and tell them that we're not spoiling anymore, but it would be DARPA net, or ARPANET rather. And more to the point, well, no, she dialed them up. She dialed them up. But yeah, no, it would have been like dial that number, connect, and just a prompt on a terminal screen. But yeah, in the 1980s, it was ARPA, and it was the Advanced Research Projects. Now, interestingly, the first, and this is a little true fact. You can Google this. You can look this up. The first media mention of the internet was actually on a show right around that time. I think this is 85 or 86. So, wow, this is a little convoluted. But in the early 1980s, there was a TV show called Soap, and it was a parody of soap operas. It in itself was a soap opera, and it touched on a lot of hot button topics. And a lot of people really liked a lot of people really liked it. And I see Kyle is going to be here in just a second, so we'll wrap this up. A spinoff of the show was called Benson, which was less of a soap opera, more of a bottle episode show. It was just a sitcom. But there's an episode of Benson where the Department of Defense is basically conducting a war game in the county where Benson works as the assistant to a state governor. And they bring a computer terminal in. We never see it, but they're talking about, well, if there's a nuclear war, how's anybody going to talk to each other anymore over great distances? And the technician who's setting up this computer terminal explains Usenet and email. He explains ARPANET. Spoiling is finished. All right. And Luther says, DARPA went offline the same day Facebook came online. Yup. And I will mention one more thing and then we'll bring Kyle on, because this is, I find it hilarious that people say, if you want anonymity, man, use Tor. Tor was designed by the NSA, the so-called dark web, and they control all the exit nodes and entry nodes. You might hide what you're doing in Tor. They know when you logged on. They know when you logged off. Just saying. All right. So let me put my headphones on and take my full hat off. Of course, Facebook is a psyop. And welcome, Mr. Kyle Schuant. Kyle, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, boys and girls, Facebook is a psyop, eh? Have you guys been discussing that? I saw that there was that article that Twitter's been hiring all these guys from the FBI and the CIA and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I mentioned this before. My wife works in a defense-related thing, and she over the years has worked with military officers in the same office, and I'm not making this up. She has known military officers who have had retirement parties in the office, cake, everything in the break room, waste an hour, fond farewells and everything. But the whole thing's a joke because literally like 2 weeks later, they don't even empty out their desk. They're just now working for Raytheon. They're in the same office or the same cubicle, but they now work for Raytheon. So they're making, like $100,000 a year or something like that, retirement money from the government for their 20 years of military service, and also making hundreds of thousands of dollars from a military contractor. Luther says he's
always wonder how much these people are doing actual productive work in their new role, and how much is just like, hey, dude, put in a good word for us at the Defense Department.
The answer is yes. Luther is officially accusing me of Australian collusion and says that you're the proof, Kyle. So, shh. Anyway, how are you feeling, my friend? I hope everything's okay. Did you get your oil check?
It was just a blood test. So some of you may know I had those seizures last year, and they give you this drug that stops seizures. Works real good. The problem is that it tends to mess up people's livers. So they do a regular test on that to just see that everything's on board. And there's always going to be a little bit of damage, but having a little bit of liver damage, at least in the term of a few years, is better than having a bunch of seizures. So they just keep an eye on it. And if it raises above some threshold of damage, then I don't know what they do. I assume that they'll give you another pill to deal with the damage or change to a different drug or something. I've no idea. It hasn't risen to that level. So,
well,
I try not to delve into the depths of it too much. I figure if they start giving me 3 or more pills, then I'm going to ask some questions. I don't want to be like those old guys with the pill boxes. Monday at 3 p.m. I have to take this, and at 3:15 I have to take this other one. I don't want to be like that. That's not good for you. But aside from that, I tend to just trust them. We pay them. We trust them to do their job. More or less.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah, when he slaps on the rubber glove and the lube, then I have questions.
Should you have both your hands on my shoulders, Doc? Moon River.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. That's
Mr. Schuant, turn your head and groan. I'm sorry, what?
That's more than you guys wanted to know. I think this just represents that I can't remember what the age bands are. You pass up a certain age band and your constitution drops. I think that happened to me because I did turn 50 last year. Is that in the book? 50 years old?
It is. Let's see. We're gonna look this up. This is going to be character age, aging, and death. So we don't mess around here on the Delver's Dungeon. We actually So human. I'm assuming you're human, Kyle. You're not half elf. You're not holding out.
Last I checked, so far as I know, I mean, I am adopted, so it's possible I'm an elf or an orc or something.
Okay, so human, you are middle-aged. Congratulations, 41 to 60. Middle age, subtract 1 point or half exceptional rating of strength, Kyle. Sorry to break it to you, buddy. 1 point of constitution, but you can add 1 point of intelligence and 1 point of wisdom.
See, this is why I transitioned from lifting to coaching lifting. Well, I mean, I do lift, but not as much as I did in earlier years. Yes, Luther, that is a weight room. No, I am not in prison. Vegemite with a file in it. Yes, that is very much a weight room. That little thing there, that's the instruction that I give to newer members to lay out the principles of why we do what we do. Most aren't interested, but I tell them anyway. I find if people understand the rules, then they have a greater sense of investment in what they're doing.
Kyle does weightlifting by the rules as written. There you are.
Yeah, it's all blurry, so I'm doing the old turn it off and turn it on again.
Okay.
But the voice will still work.
Brought to you in glaucoma vision.
And sometimes if you go focus, close, and then away, it comes back again. That's what works on the phone anyway. No? Oh, well, it will come good in a few hours.
You know what? We'll just assume that it's like you're like trying to set a mood, a little gel on the lens there to
yeah. Well, it's daytime soap opera time here in Australia, so
there you go.
I mean, I don't even know if they even still have them. Is there still Days of Our Lives and Bold and Beautiful still going?
Duel and General Hospital are still on, but by and large, I don't think that I think that's it. I honestly think that's it. I think there's like 310,000 women, 65 and older, that if they canceled those two, would camp out like the Canadian truckers. They would just circle Viacom Studios on their Lark scooters, pressing the little buzzer on them for attention.
The ones that don't have a Netflix connection to watch something else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll tell you this, though. When I was a kid, and I'm not ashamed to admit this, there was a major plot arc in General Hospital that was like a borderline sci-fi spy movie. And 9-year-old Bill Sylvie was there for it. I have less of a damn about anybody else on the show, but when they would come back to the storyline with Luke and Laura and Robert Scorpio, their handler, their spy handler, on this mad scientist played by John Colicos. If you've watched the classic Battlestar Galactica, you'll know the actor I'm talking about, crowd. He played a mad scientist who wanted to rule the world as a benevolent despot, but had to show that he had the power to make people do what he wanted. So he was using a weather control machine. And oh my God, tell me if you were 9 years old, you would not watch a spy TV series like that. You could go out of the room when they're doing the mushy stuff with Rick Springfield or whatever, and then come back for that. That was awesome television. I don't know what.
I'm not ashamed to say in my 20s I watched a soap opera. It was a New Zealand soap opera called Shortland Street. It's set in a medical clinic. And me and my flatmate watched it mostly because we liked one of the stars in it. We felt that she was insanely hot, this curvy little Asian chick. And we remember there was all this unresolved sexual tension between her and another star on the show. The characters anyway. And the other guy was just this complete nerd who missed every signal that she was throwing at him. And we're like, come on, dude, do it. She wants it. Chickened out every time. So I could relate to that because that happened to me when I was younger. He like me, he was completely undeserving of her attention. And eventually she just appeared before him in like full on stockings and suspenders and all the rest, and we thought that was a great scene. Well, of course. I can't remember if anything happened as a result of that. I think he probably still ran away, but
Yeah.
Well, that's just part of the ongoing tension of the show. They can't be erst if it's resolved. So,
well, I mean, at the end of the day, didn't they get us anyway? Because aren't we, when it comes, I mean, we were talking about Stranger Things before you got here. Okay. Now, granted, it's only like 7 to 9 episodes a season. I mean, but what is Stranger Things but a soap opera? I mean, the new Battlestar Galactica was a soap opera. Babylon 5, a soap opera. DS9, a soap opera. Anything where you have those linked storylines that take seasons to play out and all these intertwined stuff, it all goes back to, the Lux drama half hour on TV back in 1949 in the United States. It's a soap opera. I mean, wrap your heroes in tinfoil and give them a little ray gun all you want.
There's interpersonal dramas there. There's, I mean, the essence of all drama and comedy is poor communication. There's the classic, the sitcom thing where, but we're on a break, says Ross. In Friends, if people had just talked to each other and given each other the full story, then there'd be no comedy. Well, there'd be a moment of comedy, and then there'd be this long, boring explanation. Likewise with the drama, if I don't really believe that that's what's happening, that you're encountering extraterrestrial beings or whatever, and you go, well, here's proof. Let's go out to this place in the deep, dark woods and go to that haunted house, and we'll check it out together, with a camera or whatever.
Yeah.
If they just talk to each other, then it would all be sorted relatively quickly. But it's because people are little individuals running around doing things, or in little groups doing things, that the drama goes on. And then in between that information gap creates the drama, along with all the past loves and hates between the characters and all the rest. So yeah, you're right. There's soap opera elements in it.
Yeah, I mean, what one could make the assertion that a good D&D game is really just a fantasy soap opera, isn't it?
I don't know. I hope that the players communicate with each other better than we see on Friends and all the rest. Vincent said, "Who's on first?" is a classic bit. That in a nutshell, it's poor communication. Two guys not understanding each other.
Yes. I mean, when we say, X is like a soap opera, if you really take a step back and consider a lot of things in your life, like a lot of drama that goes down, sometimes you'll see like, oh, John Smith tweeted, I like hamburgers. Vegans up in arms. It's like, what kind of monster are you? Well, I like a salad too, but he didn't say that, And of course, when he comes out and says, but I like salads also, now you're backtracking and the meat eaters are up in arms. And it's just,
Yeah, I saw the one this morning on Twitter. There's some guy boasting about how he earned a PhD and became a CEO while having 6 kids. And then he listed all these things that had helped him, like, getting up early and doing his daily affirmations and all the rest. And people said, excuse me, do you have a wife who's perhaps a stay-at-home mother? Might that be relevant? And he goes, oh, yes. And number 12, I have a wife who's a stay-at-home mother, why didn't he mention it? Well, he was just taking it for granted. Oh, so you're taking her for granted?
Hashtag cancel the PhD guy. There's a YouTube series, and I cannot recommend this guy enough. He is freaking hilarious. Ryan George. He's got his own not private, you can watch it, but he's got his own YouTube channel, but he also does for Screen Rant these film pitches, where he goes in and he plays both roles. So he's reacting to himself and he's pitching a movie idea. And as a screenwriter to the producer. And it's basically, it is a parody of the movie that they're pitching. And it's also parodying the movie making process for everyone, but they're hugely popular. So it's stuff like the thing with me and Harry Potter movies have always been like, let's take it for granted for a minute that we'll just say the Harry Potter world is real. Kyle, your son turns 11. Hagrid shows up. He's a wizard, Kyle. Off he goes to Hogwarts or whatever it is in Australia.
I would be alarmed at like this 7-foot tall hairy man wanting to take my son away.
Exactly. So even if you're okay with that conceit,
he has talents I wish to explore.
Your son can do things with his hands for me. And then we find out that Kyle's in violation of Australian firearms laws. But anyway, turns out that SA-80 wasn't broken after all. Anyway, so you take the central conceit of Hogwarts. The kids go off to a magical university. And in the skits that Ryan George does, he talks about, so are these kids going to be safe there? Oh, no, sir. Wizards will be attempting to kill them all the time. And he's like, what do the parents think of this? Well, they're not really considered in this, sir. Oh, I see. And so they just kind of flip it on its head. But it goes back to what you're saying about communication, because so many of the movies that they kind of gently skewer like that, when you take a step back and you hear them explain them, you're like, yeah, why didn't they just talk to the guy? And when they bring that up in the skit, when they bring it up in the skit, so this is a big situation the characters have to overcome. Yes, it is, sir. Why don't they just talk to the guy? Because the movie has to happen. Oh, right, yeah. And that's it. That's it. Why don't they talk to each other? Because the movie has to happen. But
it does happen. As we were describing in about the Twitter drama, I hesitate to call Twitter real life, but nonetheless, it does happen in real life. There are those kind of miscommunications in real life. As an example, the crazy occult story of the week for me was this one.
Okay.
All right. So, CERN discovers satanic human sacrifice taking place in Large Hadron Collider grounds. A satanic human sacrifice has been staged in the grounds of the European Organization for Nuclear Research, the home of the Large Hadron Collider. The footage shows a cloaked group wearing long, flowing black robes, and one appears to have hiking boots on underneath. They are seen walking around before a woman moves onto the floor and is stabbed. But the footage appears to have been recorded as part of a prank by scientists at Europe's top physics lab. CERN claims the ritual was simply researchers and scientists coming to work at the facility, taking their sense of humor too far. The facility is home to the world's largest and most powerful particle acceleration, known as the Large Hadron Collider. Its aim is to allow physicists to test the predictions of different theories of particle physics. The ceremony took place under the large statue of the Hindu deity Shiva, which permanently stands in the complex. That's the deity of creation and destruction, guys. According to the institution's website, the Shiva statue was a gift from India to celebrate its association with CERN. The video was uploaded to YouTube by Richie from Boston, who wrote, "This is new footage caught on the ground from inside the building. If it's real, that's horrible. If it's a staged ritual, that's equally bad." Hang on, play. Staging a human sacrifice is equally bad as actually performing one? Okay. A spokesperson confirmed that the idea said it make that permission. Connection, guys. So it doesn't condone type of spook, but did they say condone actual sacrifice or not? They didn't say. Because it can give rise to misunderstandings. Scientific data, and internal investigators about security on CERN's campus. So, yeah, there you go, guys. So,
Uh,
what is actually happening at the Large Hadron Collider? Are they bringing forth entities from another dimension? And because the collider wasn't doing that well enough, they had to do the human sacrifice just to get that extra bit of energy. Is that making the protons and the antiprotons collide more heavily when they display to Shiva the beating heart of the victim? What's happening here? We need to know.
We need Alex Jones on the job.
Yeah. Damien says, I know it's a prank, but that's how we get Doom.
You want Doom? Because that's how you get Doom. I did not robo Kyle. The internet roboed Kyle. All of Australia goes through like a 256K pipe. So sorry. But no, it's. I'm reminded that there's a song by the Talking Heads, and the lyrics are largely unintelligible unless you listen to the live version on Stop Making Sense, which is the best concert album ever made. Highly recommend it if you like that kind of silly artsy pop music. But and the song is called Swamp, and there's a line that says, "When they split those atoms, it's hotter than the sun. Blood is a special substance. They're going to pray for that, man." I can't help but think that there's some lunatic who picked up a copy of Stop Making Sense back, 40 years ago when it dropped in 1983 and is now like completely spazzing out over that report from CERN. I would have thought that it was just the KLF acting up again. Let me tell you something. 90% of people I know that remember the KLF think, okay, they did 3 a.m. Eternal and the song about Doctor Who. Jimmy Cauty and Bill Drummond were probably some of the most ridiculously clever trolls to ever grace the music industry. Like them and Negative Land. Seriously pranked record labels into giving them tons of money to make albums where they basically just, depending on what country. And the KLF, for one of their album listings, had all the music press accompany them to a small island off the I think it was the Isle of Wight. I'm not sure, but anyway, basically, they went there and they just did like a full-on ritual. You have to don these white robes. You have to carry a torch. You have to walk widdershins around this stone altar. And what was it? I think they like any cash money they had with them, they had to burn. Like they had to throw any money and this is in the early 90s, so it's like, even amongst the glitterati of music critics, everybody's going to be carrying probably a couple $100 with them, right? Grease and palms. Nope, all had to go in the fire. BGC knows what time it is. The Ancients of Mu, Justified and Ancient, yeah. But they ran this prank for like almost a decade, up to like 1989 when they got like the British equivalent of a Grammy, and it's for their song 3 a.m. Eternal. They hired this industrial speed metal noise band called Extreme Noise Terror to play a cover version of their song, and they just stood on stage stock still while the band just wrecked the song. And then they said, we'll do another album when there is total world peace, and left the music industry, and that was it. So I mean, yeah, that's the kind of pranking that gets going around. But if you go back to somebody who's maybe has a couple of the little plastic gear teeth up here are broken, and they see, the KLF performed a ritual on the Isle of Wight. There's a human sacrifice at CERN. Luther Pendragon says you will.
KLF are a bit like TISM. TISM's a Melbourne band, an alternative rock band, and their identities have never been revealed. They go on stage with like paper bags over their heads and things like that. Yep. It's thought that they're like lawyers and accountants and stuff. So they have band names like Great Truckin' Songs of the Renaissance. And Machiavelli and the Four Seasons. So TISM stands for This Is Serious, Mum. Oh God, I can't remember what the various songs were, but yeah. The stage names: Ron Hitler Barassi. So Ron Barassi was an Australian rules football player. And then there's Humphrey B. Flaubert. So that's a joke. So Flaubert, the author. And then Humphrey B. Bear was the kids shows with a guy in a fursuit of some kind. It was Humphrey B. Bear. So Humphrey B. Flaubert, Jack Cheese, Eugene Della Hot Croix Bun, croix being like cross in French kind of thing, and Johnson Penis and Les Miserables. Former members Token Blackman, first billed as Tony Coitus, Leek Van Vialen, Genre Be Good. So they've never officially revealing their names. Instead choosing to use pseudonyms on the records and interviews, all the while concealing their faces. Usually this involves the wearing of a balaclava, but outrageous costumes have been created for the purpose, including clan uniforms made of newspaper, silver suits with puffy arms and legs to mimic an inflated cask wine bladder, giant foam paintings worn on the head, large foam signs bearing the name of a beetle, fat businessman suits, and 8-foot high inflatable headpieces, among others.
See, I can respect that. I can absolutely respect musicians who just kind of, a record label, big, small, whatever, is just like, yeah, we'll give you lots of money. And they just kind of, okay. And we can do whatever we want. Sure. Yeah. Just, okay. And that's how we get great bands like TISM or the Butthole Surfers out of Texas. Who have never stopped pranking the music industry. I think Gibby Haynes is probably a genius. Gibby Haynes is actually a genius. The guy is like a degree in biochemistry or something insane like that, out of one of the more prestigious universities in Texas. But he was just like, yeah, no, I want to be in a band instead. So.
Their charting singles were He'll Never Be an Old Man River, Greg the Stop Sign, Shut Up, the Footy's on the Radio, and I might not be a CUNT, but I'm not a fucking CUNT. Everyone else.
Thank you for spelling out the C word, but dropping the F bomb.
Well, I'm demonetized. Generally that's in Western society, the C word is the considered the more offensive of the two. I think
it is, and that comes as a surprise from a lot of our Southern Pacific, Southwestern Pacific cousins. So how are you? You C word, and it's just like record scratch. What did he just say?
No, in recent years, the N word has become more offensive, which I understand. So,
yeah, of course.
And the other charting single was Everyone Else Has Had More Sex Than Me.
That sounds positively great, and I'm going to have to check their music out because I can't get enough of those the song titles. Now the Butthole Surfers actually got stuck with their name because every time they would perform a gig around, I think it was Austin, He's Austin or Houston, but every time they would perform a gig, they would change their band name and like it would be increasingly ridiculous. And in fact, their album titles when they started releasing albums were just their previous band names. So you had Creamed Corn from the Socket of Davis, Independent Worm Saloon was another one, and the they gave the announcer, you know, like a piece of paper, and it was like 2 lines on the piece of paper, the name of the band. And in the middle of this, basically, this press release that was their band title were the words "Butthole Surfers," and he just like glared at Gibby Haynes and said, "I'm not reading this." Ladies and gentlemen, the Butthole Surfers, and he liked the aplomb with which the guy introduced it. Just they would go on to do gigs as the Butthole Surfers, and that's how he.
So speaking of poor communication and ridiculous words and so on, a good topic came up on the Discord that's actually D&D related. Languages. So some of the guys were saying that they can't really see like an intelligence 8 barbarian knowing 3 languages and that sort of thing. So there's a number of questions that are left undefined in the player's handbook, and I don't think the DMG really addresses the thing of issues. When you speak a language, are you also literate in that language? If aside from like the languages that elves and so on start with, the multiple languages that they get, if you've got those extra languages according to intelligence, do you have to define them at the start? Or can you pick them up in play? If you pick them up in play, what does it take to be able to say I'm now fluent in Orcish or whatever? And you know, how long does that take? So these are all kind of things that are unaddressed. So we were discussing the back and forth, and I think that's worthy of a look at. Now, for my part, the question of literacy doesn't really come up in D&D. It just, there haven't really been circumstances. Like in my role-playing game Conflict, I've got the question of literacy, where being literate in a language is a separate kind of skill slot. But that's a skill-based system, and it's also a system where your characters may be in a foreign country and or they may be intelligence agents. So it actually matters if they can, how well they can speak, and it matters if they can speak it but can't read it, and so on. Now, if you thought that literacy was really important in your D&D campaign, I think you could do something like that, where being literate in a language is a separate slot. The only problem there is when you come into different languages with the same alphabet. So, like, if I learn French, do I have to learn the Latin alphabet again? Yeah, I mean, they use the same alphabet as us. So then you start having to get really deep into your world building. Okay, we've got different languages, but do they use different alphabets? What are their alphabets in common? And it starts to get a bit more complicated. And you start getting into basically like D&D second edition, where you've got all these skill slots and stuff. And I think it's excessively complicated. As I said, I just haven't really seen a need for it in any game I've ever played in or run, to guess whether they're literate or not. I would be, if asked in a game session, I'd be inclined to say, yeah, sure, he's literate, because my reasoning is there are scrolls that every character can read. You know, a fighter can read this scroll, and so on, even if they're not a magic user. So if you can read a magical scroll, surely you can read your own language. I mean, yeah, but it's not normally relevant. So.
Yeah. Now, I saw the discussion you're talking about over on our Discord, and by the way, yes, if you're new here, and we did, Kyle, did you know that we're up to 1,107 subs on the channel now? So welcome for you folks who are new to us, but I'll stick an invite up here real quick. So if you are hankering to yammer at us on a hourly basis, you can join us over on Discord. Welcome to you. Anyway, so I saw this over on the Discord, and I don't want to be dismissive, and I certainly don't want anyone to think I was screw you guys, you're all wrong. My take, Bill Sylvie's take is, this is one of those things that falls into the matter of secondary skills. It is something you did before. You said, give me a sword, give me a torch, point me at a hole in the ground. Languages are something that you picked up. Your intelligence 12 fighter, who has common alignment, and I think intelligence 12 is 3 more or 2 more. Check me on that. Okay. But your intelligence 12 fighter,
3 more.
3 more. Okay. So that's 5 languages.
But it just says possible number of additional languages.
Okay. Possible number of additional languages. But let's say you're doing like I do, and you just say, pick a language and some other languages. So you got 5. Well, you got 3. You got 3. Forgive me, Kyle, please. Language slots that you can use. So there's the consideration that a level 1 fighter is called a veteran. He has been places. He has dealt with certain peoples and certain races. He has gone to foreign languages and met new and interesting people and killed them. So he may, it may have been temporary. Hey, Silverleaf, we need you to lead these men into battle. Well, Silverleaf's an elf, and he might not speak common, so we're going to pick up on a little bit of elf. Or maybe, maybe your last job was helping cleanse the Shire after a notorious evil wizard and his henchmen came through and had a bunch of half-orcs and evil men in the place. So you talk to a lot of halflings, so you pick up on the halfling language, and so on. I deem that these are things that, if it says languages, you are at least pursuant in enough that you can get concepts and ideas and abstract thoughts over in. And yes, that includes writing them down or reading them. Other DMs may not feel that. They may say, you can possibly know 4 or 5, 6 more languages, but you don't know them yet. And as you spend, let's say you're in the world of Greyhawk, you're taking a 2-month boat journey up a river with the Rene. Well, at the end of that time, guess what? You can speak the particular language of the Rene. So to me, I just deem that it is not it's not that detailed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not.
Well, I remember playing in your campaign, and at the time you didn't require us to detail the languages before the character came into play. You said when it comes up, you can just say that you speak that language until you've run out of slots, until you've run out of additional languages. So yes. My character, Iago, the magic user, he happened to speak owlbear because we came across some owlbears in the wood, and I'm like, yeah, I speak owlbear, and it was never used again. I mean, had he played long enough, it might have come up again. But I think he got up to like 5th level or something. So, but it was never used again. So, yeah, that would be my approach. That players can just. I mean, in most games I've run, there's just one language around, so it doesn't really matter. But because it just keeps it simple, like Stargate SG1 or whatever it was called. They all speak English,
right?
Just makes it easier. So you don't have to spend the first half of the show or the game session learning their language. Yeah, look, just define them and play. And that's funnier that way. Oh, yes, I happen to speak Riverine French, or I happen to speak Albert, or whatever. And if it turns out to never be useful again, oh, that's fine. The player used it for that. That's fine.
But hey, I mean, it's D&D. You're gonna bump into those things again. There's a finite number of monster encounters. You're gonna bump into them again. I mean, I had this was worth some comedy last night during the AD&D live stream. I don't know if you caught that, but the party found a very irate owl bear outside of their encampment near Castle Greyhawk. They don't know what he was so angry about. But he was gesticulating and obviously trying to get over a deeper concept. And I've gone into this before in my campaign in my Greyhawk. The owl bear is the equivalent of a working class, average Joe, Midwesterner kind of guy. Everything is always going wrong. It's either too hot or too cold. The water heater is broken. The transmission in his car is making a funny noise. One of the kids is sick. The other one's raising hell. All he wants is just 5 minutes. Can you give me just 5 minutes?
I knew that guy, Mr. Hahn. When I did my exchange in Indianapolis, in Hamilton County. Mr. Hahn, he always had this damn water heater. He was like, this goddamn water heater. He'd always be going downstairs into the basement to fix it. And you'd hear banging and smashing and the wrench and the hammer and kicking going on. It's always a water hammer. And there was this big oil stain on the driveway where his car had been. He was swearing at that. It was a good Christian man, but swearing his head off.
This guy is the owl bear. You pull up in your driveway, you're coming home from church, the car doors open, the little ones get out to just a stream of profanity. There he's standing in his driveway. He's got a beat up silk Cleveland Browns jacket on, and he throws a pair of vice grips at the garage door and yells, "Son of a bitch!" He's got the hood to his Dodge minivan open, and he kind of looks over sheepishly. He's like, "Oh, hey, Kyle B, sorry about that. You know how it is. That's an owl bear. He just short-tempered, not the sharpest stick in the bundle. He just wants 5 goddamn minutes. Can he not have 5 minutes when things are going right?" Yes, that's it exactly. That's an owl bear throwing the carcass of an elf on top of the roof. He's just at it. Nah!
So someone was asking about sign languages and that. I just treat them as the same as any other language. That it's non-verbal doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, it's still going to take up a slot. If you say my character wants to speak, and I know, and I am not belittling it because I know there's there's a couple of different, for lack of a better term, dialects of sign language. I would just say sign language. I mean, if it's super important for you in your campaign to go granular after that, more power to you. I think that's awesome, but I would just say sign language.
Yeah, it would possibly be relevant in something like conflict where you might, like I said, you might be intelligence agents in a foreign country or whatever. So knowing Afghan sign language would be pretty important. Or like in one of the Sicario movies, he encounters a deaf guy out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. So, Mexican sign language is probably different to American sign language and Chinese sign language and so on.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned sign language in conflict. I mean, I watch action movies that a lot of movies have gotten better at verisimilitude, and particularly when you go with serious historical films like The Pacific or Band of Brothers, and you see the Rangers in there going through all the hand motions and everything. And I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, just assuming I could have gotten through the physical part, that, you know, and I'm like, is he bidding on lot number 4? What are you doing? I would sheepishly just lean over with a pencil and a paper.
Well, there's not too many. I mean, well, at least, okay, for general infantry, there's only 20 or something.
Right.
20 or 30. There's not that many.
Sure.
And it's usually obvious from the context, you know. And then, of course, there's every NCO has the knife hand. That's worldwide.
The knife hand. That was a big thing when James Mattis was our Secretary of Defense. A guy called him up, and I gotta give props. So you talk about languages and interpreting and understanding languages and making your intelligence check. This middle schooler saw on it like watch a YouTube video interview with James Mattis, and at his desk saw something like with writing on it on his desk, paused the video, took a screenshot, flipped it upside down, realized that like written in magic marker on his piece of paper on the desk there was General Mattis's phone number and extension. So he called it to interview the guy. And to Mattis's credit, he gave the kid a really good interview. And like one of the last questions he asked him, and I thought this was pretty funny, what is the lethality radius of your knife hand? Because Mattis would all, you know, it's Marine, so he's always, you know, with the knife hand, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, and there was also a comment about languages saying I find it hard to imagine an intelligence 8 barbarian speaking 5 languages or whatever. I say they can, well, if the rules allow it in D&D or whatever, they can, but they don't speak them well. So you could get an English-only speaking PhD who did a PhD in English. They will speak English very, very well. They don't know a word of Italian or French or whatever. And then you could get someone else who, like, the guy grew up as a day laborer in Hong Kong in like the 1960s. And, you know, so, and there was trade from Macau as well. So this guy speaks Cantonese, Mandarin, English, Portuguese. And there's probably some Malay or Vietnamese dialects in there as well from the, you know, various fishermen coming in and so on. And so this guy is not super academic or whatever, and he probably barely reads and writes any of those, but he speaks them. He can speak them every day. So there's a difference between your intelligence and your knowledge. So I would say that even though D&D, because D&D mixes up, because it's an abstraction, so it has to mix up the two. But in a real sense, your intelligence is going to be how well you speak the languages that you do speak. So that intelligence 18 PhD in English, that person can speak about a lot of topics fairly well. They'll understand a lot of technical terminology. You can chuck law terminology at them or scientific terminology because they're going to be widely read as well. But they don't speak any other languages. They might occasionally recognize some words in other languages just from their wide reading, particularly like law gives them some Latin or something like that. But they can't speak it. They can't have a conversation in Latin. Whereas that intelligence 8 day laborer in Hong Kong, you can't speak to him about complex events and world affairs. You can't talk to him about physics and things like that. He knows his shovel. He knows his daily noodles of beer, you know, and so on. That's how I see it anyway. Allowing for the fact that D&D, like all games, is an abstraction, so it's always going to be a little bit busy, whatever you know.
I'll add one more personal story just because I love it. So back in the 90s, a girlfriend of mine at the time, lovely young lady, by the way, in all ways, Becky Francis, that I've doxed her. But anyway, it's 30 years ago, so I don't think it's a big deal. But anyway, Becky's first husband had been a fairly successful Vietnamese fisherman in Louisiana. And when she moved back to Florida, she met me. We started dating. She went downtown to sell some jewelry of hers to help her get on her feet. In downtown Orlando, we have a section of town called Little Saigon. And she went into a jewelry store there to sell some gold. And she went in, and the guy's weighing the pieces and that sort of thing, and looks down the counter at his friend, who she said was reading. I remember she's teasing me. She said, he was reading one of those Japanese comic books you like so much. And says to the guy, hey, this slut's got some pretty good stuff here. I'm just going to offer like $100 or $150 for it. And then made some other comments that I won't make. Becky was an attractive woman. Probably still is. But anyway, in Vietnamese. Without realizing that, of course, Becky was fully conversant in reading, writing, and speaking the Vietnamese language. And she melted the guy's ears. Grabs her jewelry up, melts the guy's ears, gets like 2 steps down, and she said this older Vietnamese guy that she hadn't even seen comes out and is just gushing apologies at her. Please, I am so sorry. Goes back in. Those guys are nowhere to be seen. And he got a really, really nice deal on the jewelry that she sold. So don't make an assumption about someone based on their class, because you might be dealing with somebody with a very high int and a couple of extra languages under their belt. BGC, the ale. Now, I have not read Wheel of Time, which disappoints the hell out of my wife because she's a big fan. But of course, I've read Dune. Yes, the Atreides battle language, entirely sign language. What are they? Luther. What do they speak in Australia? Because I haven't understood a word Kyle has said yet.
Yeah, that's because I'm from Australia, mate, and we just don't really open our mouths when we speak. We can speak pretty fast and just sort of nasally, and it's a bit hard for people to understand. Was that clear for you, Luther?
It was clear for me. Kyle, YouTube video. You guys should find this on YouTube. Again, very funny. It's How to Speak Australians.
Yes.
It is a group of basically it's a troupe of actors, but they're all of Asian Indian descent.
Yeah. So it's like the Delhi school of English, Australian
yes.
English. Preparing people to go to Australia from India and work there.
Yes.
And they explain, Australian traditions. They're saying, when you're going to barbecue, you need a grill. So they go and they grab somebody's iron wrought fence. Yes,
they take a section of iron wrought fence, and they're like, this stuff is like burning. And now I assume that Australian cookouts are like American cookouts. You cook the stuff, you get a nice char on it, and then you take it in and you eat. But I distinctly remember these two obvious like white collar IT guys, again from India locations to the further west of Australia. But there's like a roaring fire going on, and there's these barely identifiable charred pieces of meat on this ad hoc grill that they've taken, and one of the guys
is not quite ready yet.
Yeah. Do you think we should turn the meat? And the other guy goes, "Are you some kind of pansy, mate? Leave it on. It's not done yet."
The Australians tend to do it well done, which is atrocious.
Yes,
but,
yes, it is. It is atrocious. I want to knock off what I'm going to eat and ride the rest home. That isn't my thought. Bob dipping into the old Monty Python's philosophy department in the University of Wallamaloo. Is your name not Bruce, then? That's going to cause a bit of confusion. Sorry, I apologize, Kyle. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Forgive
Americans
me.
can't do accents.
No, we can't. We can't. Yeah, oh my God. So my daughter got me hooked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, which if you want to run like an all monk campaign for AD&D, watch it up. It is fantastic ideas, good animation, great storyline. But now I'm not one of those guys that are like, well, if you don't have all Chinese speakers on this show, it's bad and you're a bad person for doing it. I'm just not. But I do think it's funny that the world of Avatar is essentially Asian influenced pole to pole. And we meet background characters from time to time who are like, it's like, oh, where are you going to, traveler? The Avatar is trying to get to such and such place to stop this bad event. We're going to Ba Sing Se, the Earth Kingdom's capital city. I'm like, oh, what part of China is Indiana located in? I wasn't aware. It's just like I hear all of these flat, and I don't mean flat like unlovely or anything. You know what I mean? All these flat Midwestern accents in Avatar, and sometimes it's a little off-putting. It's a little jarring. Here's a guy that looks like Bruce Lee who comes out and says, Avatar, I'll help you get to the capital city of the Fire Kingdom. Oh, Lord.
Well,
but it's good stuff.
What was it? Discussing this with So you guys know Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro, the Japanese. Yeah, so it's all the Japanese kids love it and everything. My kids love it. Did I mention the Wikipedia? Well, apparently, when they were producing it for export and doing the dub, they were thinking about whether or not to. It doesn't say in Wikipedia, but they're thinking about whether or not to give Totoro an English name like Eric or something. They thought it might appeal better, and then the Miyazaki or whatever his name is, the guy in charge said, "No, we just leave it as it is." But yeah, it would have worked strange. It would have been weird.
Yeah, so sometimes you just leave it to your audience. Like if you're aiming at a core audience, I think in cases like that, it's better to leave it to your core audience and depend on them to be smart enough to get it. And then when they're kind of virally spreading it, if you will, they're kind of bringing people along with them. I find that particularly with Japanese cartoons, that is the best.
Well, I think whatever you're making, whether you're making a movie or a book or a role-playing game or a role-playing game session, don't underestimate your audience. Don't assume that they're too dumb to, understand a different name. Or even something basic like that, assume a bit of basic intelligence in them.
No, I agree with you. I mean, otherwise you get stuff like this, and let me see if I can share this. This is hilarious. So there's a SNES game, a SNES baseball game, and the developers said, well, hey, we're going to market this in America, right? Yeah, so we need American names for all the players in your roster that you can pick. Okay, well, do we know any American names? Sure, kind of. And so this is what we got. Sleeve McDykel, Onsen Sweeney, Daryl Archideld, Anatoly Smorin, and one of my favorite baseball players of all time, of course, Ray McShriff. Raul Chamberlain. Mike Truck, of course, we got to give props to Mike Truck and his careers. Willie Dustis, and not to be forgotten, of course, down there at the bottom, Todd Gonzalez. So sometimes it can go both ways. I don't, it can be equally silly. American dubbing companies hate their core audience. I think that's kind of the case now. I've seen a few pretty egregious examples where they're just like, hey, person A comes in and says to person B, that's a lovely dress you have on. Japanese original, thank you very much. I thought it was really stylish. American translation, just doing my part to fight the patriarchy, and I'm not making that up. I am not making that up.
It says my next character for sure, Bobson Dugnut.
Yeah, I'm just keeping this. I can't believe I haven't. So the lord of this city, Bill, what's his name? Glenallen Mixon. Lord Glenallen Mixon.
It reminds me of there's a couple of YouTube videos of what English sounds like to non-English speakers. And they just have like a couple making breakfast in the morning. Or
yeah.
And you listen to it and you keep wanting to listen more carefully. Like, they're saying something. No, hang on. That's nonsense. No, hang on. They're saying, no, wait. It really they sort of almost got it, but they haven't. That's what those names remind me of.
Pieces. So you smoked the tins out the tins in it? And it's an interrogative, and you're like, she said, so did you talk to Sheila about your vacation? Isn't that what she said? And you back it up, and you're like, no, that's not what she said at all. You're just mashing consonants and vowels together and sticking.
So that's what those names rimind me of.
Yeah, exactly.
They could be names, but they're not.
Yeah, it's like so who's meeting us tonight at the bar? You said a new a buddy of yours. Yeah, it's Kevin Nagilny. Oh, okay. Nagilny. That's who's our Uber driver? I want to give the guy a good rating. Jeremy Gride. Here, though, if anyone wants to steal that NPC name list, I just shared the link in the chat. Knock yourselves out, because in most of the cases the first names are okay in most of the cases, but like literally the first one is Sleeve, Sleve, Sleeve McDykel.
Well, like
Willie, Willie, that's Willie, but then the last name is
the dubbing comment. Remind me of one thing I've noticed about Netflix. I think Netflix must have this team of dubbers, because like I've watched a couple of different things, and like when I do the dub version, like that's the same voice. It's the same voice as this guy from another one. And sure enough, when I look at the credits, it's been credited as the same guy. So yeah, I think they must have just like this team of 50 people or something that they call on to do all their things. To do their
how many times as a kid did you tune into something from Hanna-Barbera? Anything from like the Herculoids all the way up to Josie and the Pussycats or Scooby-Doo, and it's like, yeah, there's Fred again. It's the guy Don Messick, I think. And then he's in a bunch of other independent films and stuff like that. Speaking of,
it would be a skill too to not only just say the lines, but say the lines exactly as the in time with the mouth and all the rest. Otherwise, you end up with that like the 1980s Hong Kong action movie thing dubbing with that. I'll get you for that. With that sort of thing. So it must be a skill, I guess. If talking
about Kyle.
I guess if they've got the guys who are skilled, then they just use them on everything. So I'm going to say independent movie.
There is to go back to Avatar, this is just a comment on dubbing. There's my favorite episode of the show is one of the characters. He doesn't have the elemental magic or anything. He's almost a comic guy, but part of the way through the third season, he really comes into his own because he becomes a sword master, and he becomes a sword master by training with Piandao, the legendary sword master. And the guy who voices Piandao is Robert Patrick, who played the Terminator 1000. And you wouldn't know it unless you looked at the credits, because his voice is deeper now, and he's got a fuller chest now than he did back in 1990. So he sounds a lot gruffer and a lot different. Sokka, the sword must become an extension of you. There are so many blink and you'll miss it. Like, once you realize that's Robert Patrick, so many Terminator 1000 jokes. So like, the blade must become an extension of your arm, and he'll gesture off with a sword. Like, yes, the blade must become. Okay, I see what you did there. Vic Mignogna voiced a Broly and Edward Elric. I don't know what a Broly is. I do know who Vic is, though, and I know what an Elric is, so I will take your word for that, Michael. Vic, also, if you want to check out something cool, if you're a fan of original Star Trek, there is a fan-made show on YouTube, The Voyage Continues, I think, or something like that. But basically, it's like they just kept making classic Star Trek episodes with a new cast. And they did it for love, not for money, because Paramount will not allow you to make money on fan productions. But Vic plays Captain Kirk and does a really good job. But he doesn't... Star Trek Continues. Thank you, Awig. He doesn't try and do a William Shatner Spock. Start the reactor. He doesn't do that. He brings his own gravitas and verve to it. But he's also a talented voice actor as well. But yes, Awig, it is called Star Trek Continues, and thank you. Who made that list? Like I said, so I'm not sure, because now I've started a thing in the comment section. This is it's just a 1994 Japanese Nintendo game, and it is 1994's Fighting Baseball. The Japanese version of MLBPA Baseball is a baseball game released in North America for Super Nintendo. While MLBPA had licensing rights to actual MLB players' names and stats, Fighting Baseball did not. Internet legend has it that a Japanese developer had to go through and create fake baseball player names. I reached out to EA Sports in hopes that they would point me towards that engineer, but a representative told me there was no one left at the company who'd have that knowledge, and the Japanese game developer, Coconuts Japan, is now defunct. Aw.
Well, there you go. 40 years ago or something, so...
Yeah.
35, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Some old guy is like retired and like tending his tomato plants, or I don't know what they grow, like his maple trees or something in his backyard. Mandarins. Mandarins is what they like.
Mandarins.
Yeah, or apples. He's tending his mandarins in his backyard, retired on the edge of a mountain somewhere, and he would have the answer for you. So you have to travel to the mysterious Orient to seek out this man living on the side of the mountain to discover the secret with your pole as you walk along.
Sensei.
And your shoulder bag, and say, Sensei.
Was it you who came up with those fucked up American names in that SNES baseball game? Hey. Arigato. You turn around, go back, catch a bus to Narita, fly back to the United States. Fulfilled. Spiritually fulfilled. Bob Jester asks, who from the Knights and Knaves Ale House does a... No, but I don't... Oh, wait. No. Okay, so Philip Sokolov occasionally does he has a podcast, and I'm going blank. Let me see if I can find it real quick for you here, because we're one big happy family. But he does a Star Trek role-playing game and general role-playing game podcast. We had Phil on the show sometimes. Let me see if I can find this here. Let me see if I can find this. SoundCloud. RPG Pop Club. You can check that out. RPG Pop Club. And they got a little thing going on over there. So give them a look. I will share the, again, I'll share the link. You guys can check that out. BGC says, love, love, love this episode. Well, thank you, BGC. We appreciate that. We really do. We love you guys too. Are you saying that episode? Well, okay. Well, we still love you. Let's see. Michael Connor says, I wish I could go to Anime Matsari this year. Rikita Law and a boatload of creators, plus Vic Mignona. Yeah, I don't really get out of the house to cons, although I am, as I said at the beginning of the show, and completely sweating bullets about being prepared for it. Thank you for asking. Going to be at Free RPG Day at my FLGS on Saturday, and I will be at QuestCon Orlando. I will be doing a panel. So come to Florida in August. Come to Florida in August, on August 20th, when Mother Nature takes her magnifying glass out and hovers it right over the middle of my state, and meet me there. I'll sign anything you want. Awig says, I doubt you want to go to Houston. I had a layover in Houston once, and that was enough. Now, I'm sure Anime Matsuri would be a lot of fun, but anyway. So what are you doing gaming these days, Kyle? It seems like we talk about a lot of theory. We're not becoming BNGs, are we?
I don't do a lot of gaming. As I've explained before, most of my gaming had been at the game store with an open game table. But those game stores closed down with all the lockdowns. I was just talking earlier this morning with a friend about how in my neighborhood, there's so the shops up the road and a lot of restaurants and so on. And my wife and I went last week for lunch at one of them, and it was like they were literally turning away customers. The tables were full, and people were showing up, and they were saying, "Sorry, nothing available. Maybe in 15 minutes." So they were literally turning people away. That's how busy it was. Yet the shopping strip has 10 or 12 vacant shops, just because though the business is out there for people to take a business, it's still a big investment to make to start a business. You have to spend 100 to 500,000 if you want to start a restaurant or a gymnasium, not just like a garage thing like this, but like a full-on place. You have to, and you might spend the same again if you have a couple of bad years, and that's your house. So you have to be fairly confident that you can do things well, and that circumstances will allow you to do things well. And the circumstances in this state are not really friendly to that. So new game stores haven't reopened, even though everything's opened up again. You can do whatever you like according to all the rules, but people are still a bit hesitant to plonk down $500,000 to open a place up. So even though a game store can be pretty minimal, but still, money is money. So new game stores haven't opened up. I was just while you're talking, I was just Googling it up. No, there's stacks in other states, but not ours. Our particular state is not super business friendly. It's kind of like a New York or a California. They're very socially aware, but not so much business friendly. which has both its good and its bad aspects.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it means that places haven't started up again. So I haven't really had the opportunity. There are a few game stores still around, but like most, they still focus on CCGs. They focus on the old card games.
Well, we'll keep praying for you, man, and I hope soon things break loose there for the gaming store. And don't you if you ping me, I'm sitting here suffering from insomnia at 3 a.m, and I see a message from you, and you're like, "I've got it. I'm opening the game store." I will fly to Australia and beat you until some common sense comes back in.
That said, I have had the occasional one-off. Still running conflict for people. Haven't been able to get online. I mentioned, I had those like US veterans looking into it, and I was super nervous having them play test it. But I had the occasional one with them. Haven't been able to get it happening regularly because of their various schedules and that. But I've had that and running a game, and I've had a couple of one-offs myself playing. But no, there's no regular campaigns going on. There's just sort of a one-off every week or so.
I wish I could get you into one of the game nights. It was a lot of fun. Audience backed me up on this. When Kyle was in the Tuesday night AD&D game, it was loads of fun, dude. And I hope there's a way where we can maneuver things to get you back in. Luther, apparently there's some Babylon 5 Zathras talk over in the comments. I haven't been able to follow it because it's just Zathras, but I'll take your guys' words for it. So just before I forget, just to mention, I do want to touch on this. Tomorrow night, we will be back with more exploring S2 White Plume Mountain, and then I imagine that'll wrap mid next week. And then we'll hop into S3, which Luther has been champing at the bit to see. You are you out next week?
I'm away the next 2 weeks. It's
the next 2 weeks. Okay. All right. So next week we're gonna have just kind of hardcore Wednesday episode where we're gonna grind through anything that's left of S2. And then we're going to start S3 on the following night. So those of you who have been enjoying the deep dives we've been doing on the S series of modules, there's Tomb of Horrors. You're gonna enjoy the next couple of weeks. I miss Kyle already, so but that's how that goes. I don't even know what to make of most of these comments. I'm just going to say yes in response to all of them. But I do want to take
a version of Dungeon Delver. What does that mean?
I haven't the foggiest idea. I am going to take a hot minute here, though, before I forget, and I will forget otherwise. And thank some show supporters, because we certainly appreciate it. And if you're new to the show, the best way to show support for the show, to be honest with you, is if you click that subscribe button and click that little bell icon for notifications. Leave us a comment if you like what we have to say. Give us a thumbs up if you really like what we have to say. Give us a thumbs down if you don't. But say something. And let me thank Joshua Garlock, Lord Corion, Ricky Maru, Mobius, Kevin Reynolds, Doomsword Deathmaster, Mark Simpson, Damian X247, James F. Keck, William Smith, the Dungeon Minister. We big fans of the Dungeon Minister. Manny Wall, Mark Corey, Kevin Wood, Todd Sharp, Carnivore Farmer, Rob Knows I Can't Say Thatulous, Jeremy Rule, Bo Ganora, Mikey Mank, Sky Hernstrom, Pete Sullivan, John David, and of course, Dwight Rotugal. That's a joke. I
think Rob did it on purpose. I think everyone should change the name to something that's too offensive to say.
Yeah. You guys grab that and change all your YouTube handles to that. Bob just for change. Yeah, that's you left your turbocharger on there, Bob. Zathras asks you blink rapid if needs save from fascist government. Okay, that must be one that got buried in the comments.
They're not. Well, no, they're not fascist because we don't have like a very strong armed forces. We have a very overpriced armed forces, but it's not very strong. So
that's
we're more
corporate fascism.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's corporate fascism. But but no, the gaming. Hey, maybe I could run a regular online gaming with some of the clowns that appear in our chat. That would be comedic. They're probably more tactically intelligent than the US veterans that I get. The US veterans, I think, have had enough of actually, they had the reality. They don't want the reality. They just want to be clowns. There was one guy with 3 characters in one game session. So
I said the most nervous I've ever.
He wasn't unlucky. He was just dumb.
The most nervous I've ever been before running a game, or during running a game, not before. Before I was cool as a cucumber, but back during Virtual GaryCon, the last game I ran on a Sunday afternoon was, it was a Sunday afternoon, and it was the last game that I ran at the con, was Twilight 2000, and I fired the game up. Now, they weren't in together, but all of these guys were military veterans. All of them. And I'm like, I can fake my way through a D&D game pretty well, Kyle, because he's going to tell me, no, an orc doesn't do that. But these guys, like a couple of them spoke fluent Polish. Okay, so if I see the farmer kind of panicking back, I say, and I'm like, awesome, he seems less afraid now. Doomsword says, we love Kyle and Tuesday night AD&D, if I might speak for everyone else. Well, I did too. And
well, thanks, Doomsword. Everyone makes mistakes. So.
Oh, goodness. But yeah, no. If you want to run something on stream, let me know, man. Let me know. We'll make it happen. Doesn't even have to be show affiliated, but I would be willing to bet you could get some of the Peanut Gallery willing to game. I would play it if and only if
I want to throw Luther into a 10-foot pit.
His character or Luther?
Well, same thing.
Yes.
If this is online, how can you distinguish?
Exactly. But I'll play in the next online game you do, as long as we can get Merkava in it. I need to meet her, even if it's only in the virtual sense. She sounds like a ton of fun. How's she been lately, by the way?
She's a good woman. Yeah, she's been well.
Good. So you got anything else, man? Because I'm right out of clever things to say tonight.
That's it. There's a creativity that we were talking about, but that's probably a whole episode in itself. It's something that we've talked about before. It comes from a quote from Brian Eno, but I'll just leave that there as a teaser for when we get back.
Yes. So when Kyle gets back, we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, creativity, and Brian Eno. So brace yourselves. Brace yourselves for that, everyone. But as for that, I have been your host, Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver. That, of course, over there, down there, I'm not sure exactly which direction to point anymore, is my co-host, Kyle Schuant, the Viking Hat DM. Thank you, everyone, for watching tonight. Please take care of yourself, drink plenty of water, and I'll see you all tomorrow night. Peace.